Coming up in today's episode, a massive fight between me and my co-host Victoria Harris. We're talking about billionaires, how they should be taxed. There's a lot going on in California at the moment, and we have quite differing opinions on the best way to get money out of the richest people in the world.
And then the royal wedding. We break down how much Taylor and Travis spent on their wedding and the fact they spent more on parking than the average cost of a US wedding.
Welcome to The Curve Weekly, where we read the finance news so that you don't have to.
I'm Vic Harris, a finance professional who's had a career making money for other people.
And I'm Sophie Hallwright, ex-TV radio producer who was very sick and tired of not understanding the economy. So we started this podcast. But before we dive into today's headlines, a quick word from today's sponsor. Building a track record as a KiwiSaver provider takes time, and the real test is whether they can keep delivering returns year after year after year. Find out more about Generate's track record and see their disclosures in the podcast show notes. And remember that track record does not guarantee future returns. Vic, what is happening? How are you? How's New Zealand? Give us updates.
I'm good. There's some great perks about being home. Firstly, my parents treating me like an absolute child, which I'm just really leaning into. Yeah, doing my laundry. I literally came home at, was it 6 p.m? Dinner was ready. I ate it for 20 minutes, then jumped on another call. Didn't do the dishes. But also I love, all that Whitakers, Vogels, all the, what do you call them? Delicacies. And also my favorite.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. God, I love an Almighty. Not sponsored, just so everyone knows, but God, I love those drinks.
No, but go out and buy one, please. Everybody listening to this podcast.
Why?
Invest in what you love. Invest in what you know.
No way. Have you invested?
I have.
I'm so jealous. Why did you not tell me about this?
I know, I should have. Sorry, it happened really quickly.
I feel like I brought the almighty bandwagon to you, and now you've cut me out of the deal. I'm so off about this.
I'm sorry. But yeah, go buy some, please, so that it can put more money in my pocket. It would be fantastic. But it is a classic example, right? I don't feel guilty now. And now I have a much more wedded interest in seeing it sold out on shelves and new flavors and all of that. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's quite fun.
Yeah, it is super fun. And for anyone that's like, what do you mean? This is just the idea of if you invest in things use, see around, it's so much more fun. You feel like a way more active investor because you can see when a product's doing well. I was listening to the Shameless podcast the other day, and they have Lululemon sponsoring their podcast at the moment. And they've brought out this whole new line? A line of a line? You know what I mean?
A line? Yeah.
They've brought out a whole new bunch of products. So that really buttery fabric. By the way, this is not paid for, although it really sounds like it is, that I love. I'm obsessed with it. They feel like you're not wearing pants, and I've had them forever. You know the ones I'm talking about. They have no seams. Anyway, that to me was the best product that Lululemon ever brought out. The fact they're doubling down on something that I know, that I've used, that I really like, made me think maybe their share price will come out of the toilet. You never know.
I'm an Aloe convert.
Oh, God.
I'm wearing them now, actually.
Let's see.
Can you see?
No, I can just see her crotch. She's literally opening her thigh right to the centre of the camera. No, I can now just see your bum. Yep, I can see it. Nice fit. Very good. Oh my God, please, if anyone's not watching this, watch it. It's so funny.
They suck in everything. They hold it like it's
great.
It's like I'm wearing a second skin. It's great. Been a true Lululemon supporter for many years, but I just wanted some brown ones, and Aloe had them, and I bought them, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Okay, love it. Before we move into today's stories, I just want to say we have been nominated. Actually, Emily put us forward for this, and our producer, and I must say I would never have applied for this because I just would have assumed there's no hope in hell that we would win this or even be in the running.
I'm sorry. I would not submit an entry because I'm not going to win. What if Sinner, who just won Wimbledon, was like, you know what, I'm not going to win, so why would I enter,
Are we comparing the winner of Wimbledon to our podcast?
Yes.
My point is, we're New Zealand gals, you know. Yes, we've made our way across the world to the UK, but it's kind of crazy to think that a New Zealand-based podcast that's now in the UK is nominated. Anyway, the point of this is just to say, if you've listened to even one podcast and you've enjoyed it, could you please vote for us? We'll link that in the podcast show notes. I think it would probably be up there with the coolest thing that's happened to the curve.
Would you get a Union Jack tattooed on your ass?
Oh, shit. Would it have to be filled in or could it be the outline?
Like it makes a difference. It's a tattoo on your ass.
Like, I honestly think I want to say yes. If we won this, maybe I will get a butt tattoo.
I'm surprised you weren't like, how big? Is it filled in or is it outlined? Would not be the first thing I'd ask.
Well, because I don't want it to be a big filled in flag, you know? Also, do I want the UK flag on my bum? Not really. I would get a tattoo if we won this. Do I want it on my butt, which I will say I think is up there with one of my better features? Probably not, but it's a consideration. Anyway, today we're talking about taxing billionaires. The reason that this story is being looked at today, so I have been fascinated in this for a while. I'm sure you have too, Vic. So when I was on holiday, maybe a month ago, I listened to a podcast on this, and it was teaching me all about how billionaires basically evade tax and how they country hop to avoid paying tax. You know, you hear like the Cayman Islands or Dubai or like it's a tax haven. And I didn't really understand the concept of this. And then when I was listening to this podcast, I started connecting the dots between politics, the idea of taxes, how if you raise them, billionaires leave, etc. It was this big web, and it's absolutely fascinating. And so the fact that something's come up in the news this week that we wanted to discuss, I was like, perfect. I think this whole concept and topic is so interesting.
Yes, there has been some news out that there is a vote coming in California this November, and it's all around taxing billionaires' wealth. And France has actually been fighting the same battle, and it's causing a lot of controversy. I'm intrigued to know what you think, Soph, in terms of taxing billionaires.
What I didn't realize is that so many billionaires, so people who have massive shares in companies, so whether it's like Jeff Bezos and Amazon or whatever, a lot of, or almost all their wealth is tied up in stock within the business. And so if you're not being paid a salary per se, or you're not pulling out money, then you're not paying a huge amount of tax. So I didn't realize that a lot of them, when they're evading tax or not paying tax, is because they're not technically paying themselves.
I guess the companies pay tax. So let's take Elon Musk, for example, like Tesla, SpaceX, or when they make profit, SpaceX doesn't make a profit yet, but when they make a profit, they pay tax. But also, like, he is a trillionaire on paper. You know, if he starts selling that stock, then the overall wealth of his decreases because he can't go and sell that all at once and liquefy his assets and then become a trillionaire on paper. Because as he starts doing that, we all know if the founder starts selling shares, it's like big red flags. Then everyone else starts selling, and then your wealth, you know, starts spiraling into much smaller amount. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that he will get taxed a capital gain when he sells that stock. The company gets taxed in terms of, you know, the company that he owns. So therefore the dividends that he gets from that stock are also taxed. So there are different ways that they are quote unquote taxed, but it's just not like an income tax. So the vote that's happening in California is a blanket kind of 5% tax on billionaires' wealth. So it's projected to raise around 100 billion over 5 years. And as I mentioned, France, it's, you know, been debating a 2% tax. So a lot, like if you think of LVMH, you know, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, that's one of the biggest companies headquartered in France, and they're thinking of putting a 2% wealth tax on billionaires, which means, you know, the founder of LVMH. But I don't know, like part of me is like the number of jobs that Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, like all these incredible companies, LVMH, have created, the amount of tax those companies, I'm not talking individuals, those companies pay in those countries that they're headquartered. And that's why a lot of countries and governments, you know, when Amazon's rolling out a new or looking for a new place to put its head office, They are scrambling to get that company to come to, whether it be Seattle, for example, or whatever it is, Texas, and, whatever state. The number of states that go, okay, cool, we'll lower the tax threshold or whatever to get those companies in, to provide jobs, to boost productivity. Like, it's such a roundabout thing. I just think you can't blanket tax people. Like, otherwise you're stifling creativity, you're stifling innovation, you're stifling people taking risks to create these incredible businesses, which create jobs, which create technological innovation, which create growth. Like, it's a hard one though.
I think it's interesting when you look at the US. The US is a notoriously supportive country when it comes to innovation, when it comes to startups, but they also do have trailing taxes for billionaires. So if someone leaves the US, they have to pay tax for a period of time once they've left. And I think what's really interesting to think about is, while I fully agree with you in terms of the business need, I mean, the business has to pay tax. It would be completely absurd if they didn't. But why should Elon Musk proportionately pay less than me in tax just because his business pays lots of tax? Because I have to pay income tax on my salary, and he does. A lot of those businesses, well, the whole point here is that yes, they pay business tax, but if they're not taking an amount out of the business and they're not being taxed on that, I think what would be a really clever way to do it is there's almost like a minimum amount that billionaires have to pay themselves in income so that they can be taxed on that. Like there should be, whether it's $250,000, whatever, some money that's being taken from them personally to pay taxes, because just because they've created all these jobs, they've also created a huge amount of wealth for themselves. Of course they have to pay tax on the gains they make or if they sell their stocks. I think it's so unfair that the everyday person has to pay a huge amount on tax on their salary, and yet someone that has more money than most people in the world is able to avoid that.
But you're saying money, but then you're saying they're not paying themselves.
That's what I mean. I think that there needs to be a minimum amount that they pay themselves out of the business, because that's kind of the whole thing, is they don't do that, which is how they don't pay tax on their income. So I think there needs to be a minimum.
I think we're getting into pretty controversial territory.
I know, and I think it's very good content. I love that we have a different opinion on this.
Like, I watched an interview with the founder of Rocket Lab, and Rocket Lab's share price has gone absolutely crazy. It's a company similar to SpaceX, creates rockets. It's just done fantastically well. And the CEO came out and goes, I don't pay myself a salary because I have enough kind of drive, upside, whatever you want to call it, in terms of my percentage shareholding. So when the company does well, I do well in terms of my stock. I don't need to pay myself whatever, $100,000, $200,000, that can go towards hiring another few people, or paying staff, or reinvesting in the business to grow further. So therefore I can, my wealth can be bigger, or the business can grow. And I was like, shit, I was like, good on you. I was like, you are so confident in the success of your business. You want to invest absolutely everything you can because you believe that there is a better return on your investment for investing in your own business than taking your money and going and spending it, that you are willing to forsake your salary. I was like, I want to invest in your business because you are putting absolutely everything on the table, essentially, in terms of backing yourself.
But you can't tell me it's not because they know 50% of it is going to go to tax.
But I don't think it is a tax thing at all. I think if he was going to pay himself $200,000, I think it's more they genuinely would rather have more ownership in a business that they can influence and eventually spit out dividends from, that they could live off. I don't know, like I would do that with the Curve if I didn't need a salary to live off. Like, I need a salary to live off. But if I genuinely backed myself and was like, this thing could be incredible and let's put my salary to use to further grow, to further reach more women, and therefore, grow the value of our business and our shareholding, I 100% would.
But I just think what it comes down to is that tax is essentially money that fuels the well-being or the development of a country. And so like the tax, and the whole point of it is that it creates, health benefits for people who can't afford it. It's creating new roads. It's putting money into growing the country. And I think if that's not being taken from people who are actively living in the society and benefiting from those things, and you and I are paying all of this money towards tax to go and pay for that. I just think it's unfair. I think if we're paying 40% tax, why should someone that has billions of dollars not be doing that? Because the amount for them that could go into then help everyone else collectively is quite significant.
I think we're getting confused with, this is a wealth tax on their assets, not their income. It's like another capital gains tax, I guess.
But I think both things are an issue right now. Both things are an issue. The idea of taxing assets is one thing, but the fact that most people who have the most money in the world don't pay normal tax on income is also so problematic.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess we've seen this essentially happen in the UK, and people just up and left. And then you're missing out on so much more when people up and leave your country. That's billions of dollars of tax that you can now not get because you wanted to tax them more. There's a fine tipping point between taxing them too much that they leave, or taxing a low amount and you get an influx, and that actually works out to be way better. If you had 100 billionaires paying 10% versus 1 billionaire paying 50%, that's way better. I think you just have to up corporate tax. These companies are spitting out, these tech companies are spitting out billions of dollars of profit. The corporate tax rate should be increased, in my opinion.
I think it would be really interesting to look at the percentage of men versus women in terms of billionaires and who this whole conversation is massively going to be impacting, because we talk a lot about how imbalanced the men that are running companies on the S&P 500, for example, are. And it's probably worth noting there's only 14% of the world's billionaires that are women. So there's a disproportionate amount of men that are impacted if this tax is risen. Yeah, I guess the reason I wanted to bring it up, and it's not to make it super gendered, but I do wonder if the reason there's so much resistance to this is that gender split. I feel like we talk a lot about the philanthropic mentality women have when they have wealth comparatively to when it's with men that have money. I feel like the reason that this debate keeps coming up and everyone is so resistant to it is potentially because it's essentially 85% men's wealth that this will be impacting.
Yes, yeah. And I think where women do show up on the list in that 14%, a lot of that is money they've inherited compared to the majority of men, which have been self-made. And that's a whole kind of intergenerational wealth conversation that, again, also countries are trying to tax, particularly in the UK, increasing the inheritance tax, all of that, because there is this whole wealth transfer, which was spoken about happening. So, yeah, I think we are in a world where there has been massive rises in wealth creation. And like I mentioned, we've got our first trillionaire. We have never, ever had a single person on earth that has had that much wealth. So it's like, how do we equalize that a bit more?
I mean, I'd be really interested to look at this in more detail. The flow-on effects, particularly politically, is actually so much more intense than I realized initially.
Oh, totally. That's why all the top tech founders are like in bed with Trump, because they know the last thing they want is a tax being introduced that, they have to pay 5% tax on their overall net worth. But also, like, we're talking about if you've got $10 billion and you have to pay an extra few percent in terms of a kind of a wealth tax or a net worth tax, it's probably like $500 million. It's not really moving the needle.
$500 million. Imagine what you could do with that money in terms of if that was then being put into fueling an economy or helping people. And I know that it's not a huge amount of money, but if majority of the world's wealth is with like 10% of people, I just feel like it's super unfair for so much tax to be taken from the individual when really we're not looking at that top percentage of people with money and how more of that can be distributed evenly.
When you say so much tax, I think you're not talking about dollar values, talking about percentage. Because obviously if I'm paying, 50% of my salary in tax, that's far less than a billionaire's paying in dollar values. I don't think the way about it is to tax billionaires more. It's more of a systemic issue in terms of how and why have we let corporations and companies get so big that there is founders with such large net worth. That's the issue.
I would love to hear from anyone that's listening to this that has an opinion on it, because I think that there's so many different ways that you can think about this conversation. If you're listening and thinking, oh, I'd love to share my opinion on this, whether it's through the hotline, we can link it in the podcast show notes, or honestly, leave a comment where you're listening, because it's so interesting for other people to read and interact. I've loved seeing a lot of communication like happening between listeners on different platforms. So if you're listening to this and you have thoughts on it or questions, can you please comment? Because I'd love to dive into this more another time.
Can I just say,
yes, of course.
I just think it's very easy to blame billionaires for the situations that we're in. And I think we are trying to find a solution, having the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff kind of thing, almost like an after the fact. And I think we need to have a conversation of the before the fact, having the ambulance at the top of the hill. How do we prevent creating such concentrated wealth in this world?
What do you mean by that, and what would that look like if we were having the ambulance at the top of the hill?
It means you're not going, okay, these people have made so much money, now we tax them. It's like, okay, how do we make sure that that is more evenly distributed amongst, instead of having the Googles of the world or the Teslas or SpaceXs of the world, how do we more evenly distribute that wealth to begin with? How do we tax that wealth to begin with before it gets to that point?
But what would that even look like? Would that mean more corporate tax as they're getting bigger and bigger? Or I don't even know what that means.
I mean, I don't know, but it would be more corporate tax. It would be, okay, once a company's over a certain market cap, then maybe there's certain things that come into place. Maybe it is being philanthropic, like a percentage of corporate profits have to go to charities in order to get, I don't know, to be public. I don't know. There's so many more creative things that we could think of than taxing billionaires, I think. But it seems like a very easy way to get everyone on board, because there is a handful of billionaires and there is billions of people that could easily jump on board with this and be like, yeah, you should pay more. It just seems like a bit of a cop-out, in my opinion.
Okay, interesting. Speaking of philanthropic and people with lots of money, we're going to be speaking about Taylor Swift's and Travis Kelce's wedding, which cost apparently upwards of $2 million, but they also donated $26 million to charity, as well as Dua Lipa and Callum Turner's wedding. So we're going to look at the finances as well as other fun elements of that. But first, we've just got a quick word from today's sponsor. Finding a KiwiSaver provider that has a great year is one thing, but finding one that performs consistently well over time, that's what really matters. It's easy to get distracted by short-term results, but KiwiSaver, remember, is a long-term investment. That's why looking at long-term track records is so important. Generate's KiwiSaver Focused Growth Fund has ranked in the top 3 aggressive KiwiSaver funds for 10-year returns every quarter that it's been eligible. Thanks, Generate, for sponsoring this episode of The Curve Weekly. And to learn more about Generate's track record or to get advice, find the link and disclosures in the show notes. And remember, track records do not actually guarantee future returns. I'm so excited to talk about this, Vic. I have been, I would say, stalking Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, when the news came out. I was on a little tiny dinghy in the middle of kind of Cornwall on the ocean, and I screamed and I said, oh my God, the royal wedding. And I was looking through being Adam Sandler, oh my God, he officiated it, what's going on? Anyway, I was on this dinghy with all these randoms, and I started out loud being oh my God, and this happened, Blake Lively not invited, all these people that clearly just did not give a flying fart about the wedding. But I felt the same about the Dua Lipa, Callum Turner. It feels like we've had 2 of the most iconic weddings, really. I was going to say in our friendship group, in our wide friendship group.
Callum Turner, my gym buddy.
Dua Lipa and Callum Turner's photos were something else.
Dua Lipa's wedding was a bit more my vibe, I reckon, than Taylor Swift.
Yeah, me too. I don't think I'd want to be inviting people I'd spoken to twice to my wedding. Like, how do you know 1,000 people, Taylor?
Also, how do you get around that many people and say hi?
No, you don't. That's kind of the whole point. You probably just don't talk to anyone.
Well, anyway, they spent up to 20 million on their wedding.
Is that a lot? I don't think it's a lot.
20 million is 1% of her wealth.
I'm trying to think what the equivalent would be for me.
What's 1% of your net wealth?
It's probably like me spending $100 on my wedding.
It'd be like me having a $40,000 wedding.
That's not a lot. That's actually really, like, comparatively, not to sound bratty, but like we're about to release a wedding episode, and the average that even our community spent on a wedding was not a lot.
But anyway, she hired out the Madison Square Gardens, which the reason was it is apparently the only place that you can like lock down and have full security, airspace, everything. When I first heard it was going to be there, I was like, ugh.
So what even is it? Because it just to me sounds like Times Square.
It's like Wembley. It's like Spark Arena. It was one of the most expensive private ceremonies in history. I mean, she is worth, over $2 billion. So 20 million's not that much. But also Travis Kelce's only worth 70 to 90 million. She has 25 times more wealth than him.
Isn't that the coolest thing ever?
And here I am thinking like, I wonder how he handles that. And I'm like, no, actually, go her.
God, that's cool. Imagine having that much more money than your partner. I don't know how many couples there are where it's that way around.
I don't think I'd like it whatever way around.
Neither. Actually, I agree. The imbalance is quite extreme.
Yeah. They'd be like, let's helicopter here. I'd be like, no, we'll just get the bus. Thank you.
It's like me and you in our Greek holiday. Vic wanting the Audi and me wanting the, like, about to die in this tiny little sort of fridge on wheels. It's really weird to have such a big wealth disparity with friends, let alone your partner. And I'd love to know, have you looked at their prenup?
It's not public, but again, rumors are that it is one of the most elaborate prenuptial agreements, which makes sense, right? Apparently it's over 40 pages, but apparently it was overseen by Taylor Swift's father, which is quite nice. He used to be a financial advisor, actually. Some stats of what she spent money on at the wedding, what that 20 million went to was the venue alone was up to about $2 million apparently for 3 days. And Madison Square Gardens gave her no discount. She paid the full commercial rate, which I kind of like. I'm like, if you can afford it, then...
Because it is kind of annoying when people have money, they then don't have to pay for stuff. It's crazy when people end up having money, they just get everything for free. It's like, come on.
Oh, the amount of shit Kim Kardashian gets for free. Security was about 5 million, flowers, catering, we can go through the whole list. But the key thing is that in order to shut down streets and everything in New York, around Madison Square Garden, they had to have a lot of police. What are the New York Police Department, and the NYPD is government funded. So this is why she donated 26 million to the city of New York, was because of the disruption, but also because she was like, I don't want taxpayers paying for all these government funded services for my wedding, whereas in Venice with Jeff Bezos, that's why the city was so up in arms, A, because of Jeff Bezos, but B, there was no payment to Venice, but also everyone loves Taylor Swift. Like, there was no people in the streets of New York being like, everyone was like, oh my God, I just want to see her. I just want to see her. I just want to and oh my God, I saw the cutest thing. All the leftover catering, they came out and gave to people in the streets. So people have eaten Taylor Swift's wedding food and they're just like frothing.
I'm so surprised they can do that for like health and safety reasons. You can't even buy a bloody sandwich at like after 5 p.m. because they're like, you'll get salmonella.
And you'll get sued and
Yeah.
If we look at the average price of American wedding though, that's about $30,000 US. So Travis and Taylor's wedding cost around 300 to 700 times that. And even just a parking permit a street permit to shut down the street, one street outside Madison Square Garden, is about $60,000 US. So people are saying like the parking permits cost more than the average US wedding, which is quite wild.
Vic, can we just do a very quick tick off with some of the key things she spent money on, how much they were?
Catering was supposedly $600 a head. So that, you know, if you're thinking 1,000 guests, that's like $600,000, not drinks. And her wedding dress was supposedly 6 figures. It was Christian Dior, so, you know, didn't expect anything less.
I think the best thing about this story is for generations, there have been scary prenups that essentially protect a rich husband, you know, and that is why there's so many. It's really been an icky, weird evolution talking about prenups. But, you know, we're finally, as we spoke about last week on the podcast, the idea that there's almost 50% now of American couples getting prenups that's often led by women. This is two very public examples, Taylor Swift, Dua Lipa, where both of those women massively outweigh in terms of value or what their net worth is, their husband. And so the fact that, yeah, they both have very intricate, public, in a way, prenups is really resetting that, I guess, just that conversation in general. And yeah, these prenups they're not superseding or making it appear like there's any less romance in these couples or in these weddings. It's just that they're in a business relationship now, and so they're being adult about the fact that those conversations have to come as a part of that.
Hey, and Taylor Swift might have to pay more tax soon. Do we want to tax her? No, we can leave her alone. She's fine. She's already paid $26 million.
But I mean, that's a good example. If someone is, you know, you're saying before, you were like, oh, yeah, everyone just loves to hate on billionaires. They wouldn't if they were donating lots of money. No one hates on Taylor Swift because she does do things like that.
I don't want to bring the gender card into this, but I just think what women choose to do with their money is, from the examples that I've seen, very different to what male billionaires do with their money. You know, we take Jeff Bezos' ex-wife as well. It's one of the largest philanthropic donations ever made. You know, there are beautiful billionaires out there that do contribute a lot of money.
Now, she's just referred to you as a beautiful billionaire.
Beautiful billionaire.
Oh, Sophie Hallwright, she's a beautiful billionaire.
Anyway, I think with the prenup thing, if you don't sign a prenup, you're not avoiding the topic, you're just defaulting to what exists in your country. And so let's all be Taylor Swift and pretend we have billions of dollars of wealth to protect.
Because you might one day, you never know.
Exactly. And make sure that we don't sign a contract without negotiating it.
Love it, Vic. Very good. Stunning research. Now, before we wrap up today's episode, I would just like to say we've got an amazing interview coming out on Friday. It's our Raising the Curve episode with Kira McMahon, who is a London-based financial influencer.
Oh, this is the girl that I met.
Yes, she's amazing. She's so cool.
I was at an event.
You're so humble. Vic was speaking at an event.
Yeah, I was speaking at an event. I actually felt quite nervous because this girl was like, oh, I actually have a financial education platform and I post content. And I was like, oh, amazing. And then she showed me and I was like, this is actually really great. And, you know, and she had like quite a few followers. And I was like, and I'm about to stand up and educate you on finance. And I was like, oh, but no, it was, she was lovely.
Do you know what? You'll be pleased to know that she actually sported a very similar Wimbledon outfit to you. Similar hats, was inspired by your outfit. So, you know.
Shit, yeah. Teaching finance and fashion.
I would say she reminds me a little bit of you, actually. She's kind of like a UK equivalent. Anyway, we have her on the podcast on Friday, and she's so lovely, and we had such a great conversation. There's so much to be learned from it. So what I would just say, actually, if you're listening to this podcast, because we've had a bit of a change of like calendar, you know, we have our Curve Weekly on a Monday, Curve Weekly on a Wednesday, and our Raising the Curve on a Friday. If you don't already follow the podcast wherever you are watching, listening, because then you'll just be notified whenever we have an episode come out.
We have some incredible voices coming up on the Curve podcast. They're going to be taking over me for a few weeks, and because we're working on something pretty exciting. So I mean, I hope they're great. I hope they're not too great, but I'm sure they'll be amazing.
They're really great. You should be incredibly nervous. No. We've talked about this for months and months. Anyone that's in the club will know what we're talking about. But basically, we've been working on something for nearly 9 months now, and it's just getting quite intense. So Vic is going to be focusing on that for the next few weeks, and we have some amazing voices filling in for her. So, but it will all make sense very soon. God, we're so annoying. The constant tease.
I'd hate us. I already hate me.
Me too. I'm sorry. But it is actually worth it for sure. It's like our version of the royal wedding, really, isn't it? Anyway, have a great week, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, send any feedback, thoughts, rate this podcast. And yes, we will see you. We'll see you on Friday. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to The Curve Weekly. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow wherever you're listening so you're always up to date with the latest finance and investing news.
And feel free to leave a comment to let us know what you thought about this episode, because we would love your feedback.
We've got new Curve Weekly episodes for you to listen to every Monday. But until then, listen to Erasing the Curve. These are our in-depth podcast episodes where we chat about all things money.
We're also around all week on socials if you're hungry for more Curve content, and all the links are in this podcast's show notes. We hope you have a great week, and we'll catch you for the next episode of The Curve Weekly on Monday.
Okay, quickly, The Curve was created to empower and educate you about investing, but we are not financial advisors.
Our platform exists for educational purposes only, and it doesn't provide personalized investing advice for your individual needs and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision.
And always remember to do your own research before making any investment or financial decision.
We're here for any knowledge and support you need, but the final call is always yours.
And thanks for being here.
You got this.
Yeah, we know you got this.